Hey people, it's me again. So, anyways, Halloween is just around the corner. So, anyways, so I talk about this sort of thing periodically, you know, but in a way, I did dress up for Halloween in the past, but the last time I had actually dressed up for Halloween was back in '02 at one point, because it was like I was back here and I dressed up as a cowboy for Halloween because it was supposed to be a bit of a joke because of like the one of the parties that they had there at, you know when I was living in Dallas, and I came back home as dressed up as a cowboy. Yeah, but it was a joke. And then I forgot what they did there, because I think I dressed up as like a beatnik for um for like the Halloween of, like, I think it was Halloween of 2000. I dressed up, and then but I just had like a black shirt, a black sweater, black pants, and I think I still had that beret somewhere, and I wore that little beret, you know, so just to be like a beatnik, yeah. And then I think it was around Halloween of, I think it was '93. Was like the last time I also dressed up, did trick or treating, because that was when I dressed up as an artist. But it had that same kind of beret, white T-shirt, and then one of my black sweaters on top of it, and then I think it did like the space camp one, because it was a uniform that one of my brothers had gotten when he went to space camp that year. And then I think it was the year before, it was like fifth grade, was when I dressed up as a hippie. And then I think mom had made like the little peace sign necklace, and I had like a tie-dyed T-shirt, I think, if I remember correctly, you know. But luckily, I remember like mom had fixed it at one point, or was it my brother had fixed it? You know, one of my brothers, and because otherwise I was gonna be having like a Mercedes sign instead of a peace sign. So, and then it was a chef for like fourth grade, Halloween of '90, and then Halloween of '89, I was Tonto, and that was the one where I got the most candy that year, because not only I went to the houses in the adjacent streets, and in the streets around where my house is, but also these streets that were like a bit further down. I mean, further up the main road, and then, but that's what it was there, because I think it took me almost like a couple weeks for me to finish them all. I don't know. I mean, but then again, it's like my memories kind of get all fuzzy because it's been that long. And then I think I remember it was second grade. I went as a King of Hearts. I think I almost said Queen. And then I don't think I even really remember what else I dressed up as. But it was like one of the first Halloween when we moved to the house back about 40 years ago, was like I dressed up as a conductor, as a train conductor, and then one of my both my brothers had like the pirate costume, because technically the costume was more of a pirate costume, and so it just had like a little shirt that had like the little fringes on the sleeves and on the shirt itself a little bit, and it also kind of reminds me of like what was his name, like Neil Diamond or one of those artists that are Evil Knievel that had like that had the jacket that had the little fringes on the sleeves or something like that, you know, or it was like the torchbearers in the '88 Olympics in Calgary, you know. But although I don't really remember like that Olympics you know a whole lot, but I think I just saw like videos of like the torchbearers and that the Olympics, you know, online a couple of years, several years ago at that point. So, anyways, as far as that goes, you know, I mean, after all, like for me, it was like when I was younger, like the reason I also liked Halloween was, of course, the candy, you know. But I think for others, it was probably was dressing up and I don't think I actually even dressed up for school. I think, but I remember at one point it was probably like fifth grade where one of my classmates, I think her name was Jenny, and she said to me like that I should have dressed up as a vampire because she was dressing up as Buffy, you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But that was before the TV series had started. You know, when the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know, and was that the I think that was the movie where what's his name? I keep forgetting the guy's Paul Rubens, you know, but he was the guy that played Pee Wee Herman. Where it was after he got arrested for, you know, but that was back in 1991. But it was like after the Pee Wee Herman show got canceled that year. I'm trying to remember when did they had I mean what network or was it on, if I recall correctly. It might have been like ABC or something like that. I can't even remember. But that was like one of the things there. And it reminded me of like that whole story. I think it was one of the bus drivers could do Pee Wee Herman's laugh at that time. And that was back around like first or second grade or something like that, you know. But then, of course, what comes after that is like Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving was also like one of my other favorite holidays because it's like, because I would also say my favorite entree there is like the mashed potatoes, and probably like the turkey itself and the stuffing, but I don't think I really like the yams, but or the but maybe also like the corn or something like that, you know. But I remember it was around second grade where where it where I was in the CCD class, you know, and that's like the class that's like cataclysm. Yeah, I forgot what they call it because I forgot what it stood for, but to anybody who was like raised Catholic, you know, but and then at one point, I think that one priest is probably retired, you know, Father Bruce. And I can't remember his last name, but the whole story was where he asked me about the the different entrees in there, and I said my favorite is mashed potatoes, and then I think he asked me about how they make them, and I said I don't know, with a sledgehammer. But I was a bit cheeky about that. But I remember one of the time where Father Bruce was showing us like the other parts of the church, and because if I remember correctly, it was like it was when the church was trying to raise fund to build like a new parking lot, and that was about 35 years ago. And at that one point when they built it, they found like whale bones there, and then so that was one of the stories there. And then that one, and I remember in the other story there was when he was showing us around the other parts of the church, because then it was like the upstairs part was where there was like the rectory and all that, and then there was another part where it's like that's where like the confessionals are, and then there was another part where it was like I forgot what they call it, but it's a part where like the priests and the deacons and any of the other uh, clergymen keep their vestments, because he even had a stole that that had like Charlie Brown and Snoopy and Linus and all that. And I think he said that was one of his favorite stoles that he would wear, you know, as far as that goes. But the whole reason I would talk about this was like, what comes after that is like Christmas, and then of course there was like Advent, and and that was like when they go into the new what do they call it, the liturgical year, or what do they call it again. And then if I remember correctly, when it came to that, it was so I think it was around fourth or fifth, maybe even sixth grade, and when I was with I don't even know if it was that way with when I was in third grade, when I was in Miss Levitt's class, and she was like the teacher that I had for like 3.5 years. And so she had the Advent calendar. So anybody that was that wanted to write to open the calendar, open one of the doors in the calendar. So it just had like little small things like where it had like, for me it was like I had like a little ornament of like the little drums on it, because it was supposed to be like for little drummer boy. Yeah. If anybody remembers that Christmas Carol, but that was one of those things there. You know. And Christmas I think was also one of my favorite holidays, of course, and of course like everybody also has like the Christmas Story. But and like I keep forgetting to do that, was to buy like the pink bunny onesie from the Christmas Story, but then have like somebody take a picture of me making this dour kind of sad look, if anybody remembers that movie. So anyways, I guess that's probably it. So talk to you guys later.